Good evening, everybody. Welcome here to the Eindhoven Innovation Café here in Kazerne. Also welcome everybody who is watching online. For those of you who haven't been here before, the Eindhoven Innovation Café is a weekly networking event where we give a platform for speakers on the subjects of design and technology. And today we have Robertus here, a renowned figure in the design community here in Eindhoven and around Eindhoven. And it will be moderated by Mary-Ann Schreurs. This is also made possible by Caravan Cultura, who Mary-Ann Schreurs will elaborate on a bit more, but Jelena from Caravan Cultura couldn't be here, unfortunately. But enjoy the evening, and we'll also have drinks afterwards in the back of the garden, but enjoy the presentation first.
Hello everybody, welcome. In spite of the weather, there are people here, that's wonderful. I have to excuse Jelena because she has COVID. It's starting up again, folks. And unfortunately, and the wonderful thing is that this whole series of talks on the history actually of design is created by Jelena. So be well soon, Jelena. Until the next time, and thank you for making this possible. For this evening, we have really the luck to have a wonderful speaker. For Hans Robertus not only lived design his whole life, and he can't stop, apparently. He also makes design possible in another way. When you look at design, the possibility it has in itself are enormous, but if you don't give it the chance to actually be actualized, it will not happen. And he played a large role in it. To start with, at Philips, in his early years at Philips, you just made objects beautiful, and that was it. You came in as the last part of Philips that was asked to do anything. And he was part of the development within Philips to create total solutions, and together with all the stakeholders. And as such, that's not an easy thing to do. Not in a company that consists of all kinds of silos. The second thing he did, he was CEO of the Dutch Design Week. And there, again, he was part of making a big step forward in making the cooperation possible between all the fairs all over the world. That really is his thing. Because in the end, if you want to achieve things, you have to join forces. But on the other hand, what he also had to do is take challenge against the people who put the money on the table and said, okay, now it's ours. And no, the Dutch Design Week belongs to these designers. It's the ultimate place where designers show what they are creating. Show it, talk about it. So when you have the challenge that the people who put money on the table say, well, actually, we want to use it as PR, you really have a challenge. And in the end, because Hans is also a very charming man.
Will you please stop pushing me?
And very modest. He succeeded in making it all work. And in the end, that is his big asset. In the end, he brings parties together, and he will tell about that. So the floor is yours, Hans.
Okay. Thank you. Are you all coming from Eindhoven? Oh, I'm standing. Is this position right? Okay. Are you from Eindhoven, all of you?
No.
More or less. Okay.
I'm coming from.
Okay. And who of you is a designer? None? That's interesting. Are you on the business side, technology side, or give me some clue of who I'm talking to?
Education.
Sorry?
Education.
Education. Okay. Okay, because I didn't know, I made a combination of slides and put a story together. I hope it fits in your expectations. So, but that's the risk that we both have to face. I called it the maturing of design. So, opa verteld, we would say in Dutch. It started with product design and it ended up in design as impact. And I also want to end up with 3 or 4 remarks and observations about what's happening in Eindhoven right now as a design city and what falters in my view. And but let's see when we are at that point. This is my background. Let's skip that. Maybe it's interesting to mention that the last 4 or 5 years I'm teaching a master course in Rotterdam, Erasmus, design thinking in the public domain. I do that together with a former top ambtenaar. What's ambtenaar? And I do that with pleasure. I'll come back to that point. This is the story, ultra brief history of design to design thinking. I was asked to bring 2 cases, or a few cases, and I brought it back to 2, to illustrate the steps of what the design process could bring to a challenge. A summary, and again, the observations I'd like to share with you. I start with this picture. I could do this differently, but I love this picture because it's Raymond Loewy on the front page of the Time. This picture was made in 1954. He was a very famous guy, very rich in his time. He was friends with the Kennedys, blah 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 blah. But everything, and that's the rest of the picture. This was styling. Whether it's a pencil sharpener or a train or a car or whatever, it was purely styling. At that time, this were the Philips products, and you recognize this as being styling, purely. I love this picture, and I added it because I want you to remember this. This is a very linear way of working. That's what this picture tells you. By the way, this is Stefano Mazzano, the CEO of Philips Design in my time, and all the credits that Mary-Ann shift to me is thanks to him. I come back to that. At a certain time, we were faced with, and I'm talking about early 90s, with a few, and there's a lot more, but I'd like to share a few paradigm shifts at that time that were relevant. It was the end of technology push and marketing pull. We had lots of products and every button or function was already on it or in it, and there's a kind of it was too much. So there was the end of that. This was an interesting point. This is the time that a product from the invention to market introduction took from 1900 up until now. That's a long, that took a long time. And nowadays it's more like this, so to speak. Another one is we find very interesting. I compared these 2 phones. This one, the one on the left, was made by one company. You can do that in one place. That's all you need. Nowadays it's this, and you can't make this phone alone. These are thousands and thousands of companies are part of us having this. So Stefano came up with this quote, and I love it still. Today's Da Vinci is in the line. So that's so you have to keep that in mind if you work for clients, that there's far more stakeholders than before. Of course, you might know this guy. We all know him, Simon Sinek, and he introduced the why, how, and what issue. And he found out that whether you organize a birthday party for your children or the company or the board of a company building planes is thinking about the next plane, only less than 5% of the time is spent on the why question. We all have the intention to start immediately. Who's doing what? How do we do it? Things like that. That feels comfortable. So At that time, early 90s, and again, Stefano decided, we both began at the same, in the same month, and he decided to hire human behavior specialists, so psychologists, anthropologists, sociologists, and not as experts that you can call for advice, but really as an integral part of the design teams. I'd like to do this first. So we're talking about experiences. This is a famous picture of the time that our parents bought beans for the coffee, brought it home, and did this with the famous machine to grain them. And a cup of coffee was 2 cents at that time. Companies found that interesting, made machines to help you with that, and the coffee price went up to 25 cents. Nowadays we go to the Starbucks of the world, and do you have any idea? No. Yeah, what we spend now, that's a factor 250 compared to the. So we are willing to pay quite a lot of money for the experience of, in this case, coffee. So basically, it was a shift from styling to impact. Another famous quote is from stuff to solutions. Those quotes are well familiar in the design world. A couple of cases, actually two. And I'd like to talk about this one first. Have you ever seen this? You're familiar with it? It's the Kitten Scanner, that it's called. It's a scale model of a scanner, and children can go in a special room without nurses or any other professional assistants, maybe the mother or the father or a friend. There are dolls in that room. The child can pick up one of the dolls, in this case the elephant, puts it in the scanner, and the only clever thing of that thing is that it recognizes the doll. There are more dolls, so in this case, Ollie the elephant begins a story about, I had some stomach pain, went to the doctor advised me to go in here in a machine like this, and it makes a lot of noise, blah, blah, blah. So he's telling the story in a child-friendly way to explain what's happening and what will happen with the girl. And he tells that he or she swallowed 2 goldfishes, and that it was all solved by going into that machine. I'd like to show you a 1-minute video of what's happened after this, because it evolved, that whole project. And after that I will show you the 5-6 steps that were necessary to come to the solution which I show you in this video.
Undergoing an MRI exam can be a stressful experience for children. Philips Pediatric Coaching is a holistic solution to prepare and guide children at home, in the hospital, and during the scan. It consists of a gamified mobile app, an educational toy scanner, and guidance during the MRI examination. Children playfully learn about the MRI with the help of Ollie and friends. In an interactive game, kids help Ollie undergo an MRI scan and discover why it's important to lie still. Children can explore the MRI scanner in augmented reality at home. At the hospital, the child meets up with Ollie and her friends at the Kitten Scanner. And when it's time to have their scan, they are again accompanied by Ollie, whose familiar voice guides them throughout the examination. With this solution, parents can be reassured, children can feel empowered and well prepared, and their doctors are supported in getting the high-quality images they need for their diagnosis.
So the nice thing is that the software went so far that Ollie, in this case, keeps with the child all the time. Also, when he or she goes into the machine, they can look in a mirror and they can see Ollie at the shoulder of the patient. So, but again, I'd like to go through the process. The first thing that we did in this process, and if I talk about this process, please see this as a metaphor for everything. Any other project, it works the same has the same structure. So you first start with setting up the right team. So in this case, the mix of the team was more or less 50-50 between medical staff, all the experts from the hospital, and in particular in this area of the hospital, to do the whole co-creation. So we did it really together. And I added co-ownership, because that is essential by working like this. You build in co-ownership, and if the design team afterwards is gone, there's still ownership of the professionals knowing why things are as they are. And if things need to be changed, they're the right people to keep that in mind. We did a desk research, of course, to understand what's happening, and that took quite a long time, about 6 weeks. Reading a lot, talking to a lot of people to really understand what's happening. And this is an interesting one. Reframing the question. In my experience, also by giving the master course in Rotterdam, people hardly know, commissioners I'm talking about, how to frame the question and their need. And in almost 90 or 95%, they come up with a question: I need a new website, I need this, or I need that. But that's not the real question. And we often say, well, okay, close your eyes, snip your fingers, it's there in front of you today, now. What is the result of this? Now you have a website or a solution. So that's why we spent quite some time in scanning or reframing the question. In this case, the question was, we need to scan more young children during a day. And the reframing was, and I'll show you how that worked, how do we put children at ease? That was, after a while, it was quite clear that that was the real question. We started doing things like this, customer journeys. And on the left side, you see the standard stakeholders like the nurses and the experts, the specialists, but also taxi drivers, for instance. Those people picking up the right signals or other signals than the normal chats with people if you interview them on a professional level. So the emotions during the trip to the hospital and back are interesting, but also people who do the catering and cleaning and those people. So we talk to a lot of people, far more than the basic subject. These are the customer journeys, so all the yellows are the observations, just looking at what are people doing and where are they going and why. This was the trigger for the whole Kitten Scanner. We observed, just by sitting in the entrance, that a lot of young children all took their dolls with them. And this was the first sketch, and I love this one. It shows that the child comes to the desk with his mother, and he's asked about his hobbies, and in this case it was space. So the whole setting and the guidance and the wayfinding was a theme put around that, and that worked. Scale models, these are random pictures, but just to illustrate that without rebuilding a hospital or changing rooms quite definitely and professional, you can do a lot with carbon board and plywood and things like that. So an entry in a desk you can do with boxes, just simple play, and that works. This was successful, global implementation, and if you look at the results on the project level, so we managed to get the children and their parents calm down on a serious level. It motivated the staff. If you work in an environment where things like this are happening, it's really motivating for people and stimulating others to do similar things in their areas. Also outside the hospital, this is what people take home, tell at birthdays and parties, and most importantly at the end, because that was the basic question, they could at the end almost treat twice as much young children during a day. So it went up from 16 to almost 30. So That's impressive. Looking at the profession of what this meant for the design profession, this is what Mary-Ann also said in the beginning. When I started working, this was my position at Philips Design. So the marketing department, the sales department, the engineers had already an engineering prototype standing on the table, and then at the end, yes or no, design department was asked to make things sexy. They couldn't formulate another question, then we all laughed, because they all said, yeah, make it sexy, please. They had no clue what they meant, but good. By doing things like I just showed you, the result was that the teams worked far more holistic and together, and at the same time, the designers shifted forwards in time. Looking at the first picture that I showed you of the studio with the linear process, this is the process of today. It's far more an iterative process, steps, testing, and if you find things that should be improved, you can go back, and that's the way it works. So early involvement, designers are far more asked on strategic level, on board level, and I think that's a major step. The result was that instead of, and these are all business magazines, I come back to this topic if we talk about Eindhoven, but suddenly the design stories came on the cover of really business magazines. But they talked about the impact of design. One example in England, this is recent, a couple of months back, they calculated that 74% people using design skills in their job are more productive than the average worker, and 209 billion contribution of workers with design skills on the economy, making the fastest growing sector in the UK at this moment. But this is serious. One remark about sustainability, that's more than environmentalism. I made this statement in order to arrive at durable and meaningful product and services. A thorough understanding of the experience world of users and stakeholders is key. If we make products worth using, and if they are right, the design are right, then it's a contribution to sustainability in my view. For those who are interested in these things, this came out also very recently, the design value framework, so the impact of design. This is a beta version. This is a very good suggestion for Eindhoven to start doing this and work with this. They made a circle around the impact, the way you can measure the impact of design by adding it with democratic, sociocultural, environmental and financial aspects. So that's not going into detail considering the time for this speech, but if you're interested, this is online, you can read it online. The second story is about a project in Genk, in Belgium. I did this with a colleague, a former colleague, who's living in Belgium, and he's Belgian. And the assignment there was to come up with a widely supported commercial vision of and for this street. This is a 2 kilometers long street. It's a serious long street. Lots of shops and some people live there. We did a pitch for this, and we decided for the pitch to start with we thought would be given by other companies. We knew a few companies who also would like to have this project, and we expected them to come up with artist impressions of how beautiful this street could be. So we spent an hour or two to come up with beautiful artist impressions. So very quick, blah, blah, blah. And we start our pitch by doing that. It's a nice anecdote, that's why I'm telling it. So we showed them the pictures, and the mayor and her assistants were looking at the pictures, and oh, wow. Could this really be or become our street? But after a few slides, we said, this is what you normally get as a presentation. But that's not us. That's not how it works for us. So we thought, well. And then we told our story mainly in line with the story and the process of what I showed you with the Kitten Scanner. And then the anecdote becomes really beautiful. The mayor said at 3/4 of our presentation, "Gentlemen, I'd like you to stop your presentation. I decide at this moment that you got the job. And please keep in mind, your prize is more than the 3 other parties together." And I'm not talking about ever, but her staff was surprised and shocked. Yeah, but we don't have. And then she said, "Gentlemen, that's our problem. This is the story what we need. This is what we have to solve our problem." So, okay, that was the starting point. This was the situation. So it's a very long street, lots of shops on both sides. And this side was a valley of green. This is a long story. I can talk for hours. I have only 2 slides about this, so it's very, very basically presentation for this project. But what we found out that it was a mine city, so there were all people from all parts of Europe. Every country in Europe was represented there, and there was a high degree of mistrust towards each other. And the famous statement, everyone said this: "We absolutely do not discriminate, but before those people who were here, everything was fine." So from every country to every country, that doesn't make a difference. And the government, well, this is a situation in the Netherlands as well, so little trust to the government. And what we also found out that we couldn't find out who owns this street. The city said, "Well, it's our street," but they don't come there and they don't know anyone there, so it's very strange. And there are some organizations organizing all kinds of things, but they don't own the street as well. I took this picture with me because if you're in situations like this might be an inspiration. We brought all these people together in a few evenings. And we also always started at these settings with the first remark: we don't have to agree on anything tonight or this afternoon. It's not a discussion, it's just to get insights. And we brought people who can make beautiful drawings for the people. All these people could order a drawing. What's in your eye or in your view a nice, friendly shopping center or whatever topic? So you can order a drawing, and the advantage is that because most people find it difficult to stand up and speak in public, but if they have a drawing which was specially made for them, explaining the essence of the message, then this works perfectly to get a lot of information out of people. And they can bring it home, so they talk about it, keep talking about it. This is the end result, and again I skipped everything because I have many books about the whole project. But at the end, we show them this picture. I have to explain that the whole story, from all the input that we got, was always between between this line and the other line. It was always in the street. When we showed this, and we said the whole valley here could be pushed through the street, almost literally. And we organized all kinds of interesting things in this side, but we can break open buildings and have a terrace at the back side, the beautiful side of. We presented this for about 300-400 people. There was total silence for, in my mind, 10 minutes, but that's nonsense, for a few seconds. And every discussion about, I need more space in front of my shop to have more tables, to serve more clients with food. Or I need to clean up other things, or I don't want the bus stop in front of my, etc. Those nitty-gritty topics. So this was the one and only picture that really made the whole project. It's still going on. They're building it right now, and this is really a nice project. And we called it Valley of Worlds, with all the nationalities. So this was, yeah, that also felt very good for everyone. A short summary. So basically, we went from products and services to solutions. It's supply-driven in the past, and today it's demand-driven. Single supply to alliances and change, linear process, iterative processes. Technical innovation went to social innovation, and customers and users are multi-stakeholders. That's a real difference. And creation became co-creation and co-ownership. Coming back to Brainport. Eindhoven is called a design city, and in my view, it's a design city for 10 days a year. There's no, and I'm exaggerating, and I have to be careful. This is on tape. No, but I think there are a lot of missed opportunities. So, and I know the government is working on it, and many other people in Eindhoven 365 made a vision document, and now they start working on a design vision with the government and the foundation, the design foundation. So it's all I'm very positive about what's happening. But again, there's the designers in this region are seldom asked by the companies and high-tech companies to help them making smart products even smarter. Coming to that is in 2011, Eindhoven became the smartest region in the world. And I laughed at that time because I know this is only meant for the nerds and the autism-oriented companies. With all the positive things about that, I mean, they're doing very well. But I've found this such a fundamental missed opportunity, because there are so little cities in the world or regions in the world where you have a combination of the high tech, what's represented here on a beautiful level, but also a rich design culture, creative culture. So why not combine that to far more than we do it right now? So it's the left and the right side, and my suggestion would be the following, or my observation is that if you look at if you get your hair cut, or if you go to the dentist and you see the glossy magazines. Eindhoven is famous for the glossy magazines, so I just picked out a few. I also added the Eindhoven Design magazine. Why? And we are not mentioned in these. Designers are not mentioned. The stories in designers are not. Yeah, a nice watch or a nice thing or a Piet and Eyck or the famous guys. Why don't we have an own magazine on the level of this? So not make a design magazine. It's just an example. It's just to start a discussion. But why don't we have our story told by ourselves, interviews with all these people? The magazine should also be made by these people, so the industry, the municipality, academia, and the design community, just as a suggestion. So as designers, we can blame lots of other people, why are you not hiring us? But in my humble opinion or observation, I don't hear the designers coming up with these stories on the level, and not the same, but on the level that I gave you two examples of. This is also with a smile on my face, talking to the local government here. And my story, so over the years, the private sector has increasingly focused on a human-oriented, research-driven approach. That's basically my story up until now. And the question here is, what could the government learn from this? Basically, the world has changed from governmental people in a kind of a pyramid approach. Will tell the people what to do and what they must do and what they should not do, and control that whole process. Now everything is far more coming up from bottom. People, the citizens have an opinion and would like to be involved in the solutions that they are part of. So basically they should learn from the steps that actually they get clients instead of we know who you are and we'll let you know when we're ready. So that's an interesting approach, I guess. And my suggestion should be they don't have to follow the course that we give, but they should be trained about our profession and get lessons and get familiar with what could be possible. And this book would be my recommendation. Are there any questions or remarks? I realized it was a mix because I had, yeah.
It was a good story.
Okay.
Because I recognize a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm on the other side, I'm in
Yeah.
technology. I work for a small company in Veldhoven.
Yeah.
And all those steps that you showed
Yeah.
are, in a sense, all the steps we do as a small company in Veldhoven.
Okay.
So, when you stated you want to like to teach people design in the
Yeah.
community, it's, to my opinion, more how do we manage a project to get to a result.
Yeah.
And these steps that you show,
Yeah.
and so don't worry about the money. What is it that you want?
Yeah.
I want to have a better machine. No,
Yeah.
you want what is it that you want?
Yeah.
Those questions we ask
Yeah.
our customers.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, it's an interesting story to
Okay.
see the same story
Okay.
at a different level.
So you're pleased?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let me turn this around. So I agree with a lot of what you say regarding Eindhoven, and we
Mhm.
can discuss this afterwards. What do you know about systems engineering?
System engineering.
Yeah, because that's how we call it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what. So I see
Yeah.
this very often here at Café. Designers talk
Yeah.
about this design approach, and they have never heard about systems engineering.
Yeah.
And that's the engineering discipline
Yeah.
you just described.
The guy that I do the master course with, he is an old, former top guy. He was the director of ProRail for 10 years. So, and he's thinking in systems, and so luckily he's doing that part of the story. But we both, and I invited him to do it together with me, because that system part is crucial. The master course we give, that those people come from ministries, from the province and from municipalities. By the way, I've never seen in the few hundred people someone or anyone from Eindhoven, so they didn't find us yet. But to do that together with someone who's really into systems and understanding how these processes work, that's essential.
But one of the striking things is that you see that within design, the people that are interviewed are of a much broader scope. So if you are into system designing, most of the time you know who you are going to invite to make the next move forward. So in a way, it isn't exactly linear, but it's more linear than. So the basic. And it starts with the statement made, we don't have to agree. How many times are you in a meeting within a technology-driven context in which we don't have to agree?
2 times.
Yeah. So you were nodding that often not the right question is asked, and I was wondering why you were nodding.
Well, I made a lot of mental notes about the things I heard. I think people, when they come to a certain place, like to discuss something, they already pre-constrain themselves to the situation, and that loses a lot of the innovation, creative thoughts.
Yeah.
And by making that meeting about, like, we don't have to agree on anything, you make it a safe place to just come up with anything, which makes space for innovation and creativity.
And it is an open question. It's just
We do that.
Yeah. How do you make that happen?
Well, so in systems engineering, when you go by the textbook, which we of course don't go widely in you find processes like requirements elicitation or functional analysis, where you collect information. And in fact, funny enough, I moderated today 2 meetings, which are at the beginning of the project, where the only goal was to bring the potential future project members or stakeholders together and talk. So I deliberately did not set up an agenda, and that worked quite well. So you of course need empathy and intuition to moderate such a discussion. But it was not on such a large scale, so I didn't have professional graphics designers at hand who could do drawings, unfortunately. But this is not as uncommon as you might think.
Mm-hmm.
And I fully agree that this is a completely lost chance. Many high-tech companies in Eindhoven are known to be system integrators. So they have developed a very specific systems engineering culture, which is very different than what you find in, for instance, aerospace or nuclear. And I try really hard right now to reach out to the design community and bring that together, because that will be the distinguishing feature, I think, if Eindhoven survives. So that is what many of these other allegedly intelligent cities you showed on the map can't do that easily, I think.
Interesting,
I also thought, and you said at the end that there's a master course, I was thinking like, when and where should students start to learn about this?
It's on the website of Erasmus, so you can find it. So we'll do the next one in
21st century skills, or
sorry?
Is that about the 21st century skills? Or?
What do you mean by the 24th century?
Well, I think on the maybe you've heard about it, but in education that's a big thing. That we talk about what students need to be fit for the future. And they call that the 21st century skills. And maybe design thinking or thinking like a designer is part of that too.
Well, actually you can see it and you were telling us that you do it also within your company. You can see it in the drawing that states that in the end you can't do it one piece of the puzzle at a time. You really have to integrate the things that are important from the start. And whether you are doing something small or something large, that doesn't matter anymore. So that drawing tells it all. So in a way it's design thinking, but it's also system thinking.
Yeah. And I've heard this being called at some point also like the artist mentality. And I think that already puts it in a certain area or place where a lot of people think, well, that's not me. Well, maybe system engineers as well.
I showed you the picture of the magazines, the glossy magazines, and I said I put the Eindhoven Dagblad extra. I have an anecdote. Is it still on tape? Okay. When I was the director of the Dutch Design Week, after 2 years or something, I saw an appointment in my agenda that the staff of the Eindhoven Dagblad would visit me to come up with a story, and they came in with 8 people or something like. Wow, we had to put an extra chair. And before they had their coffee, the boss of their team said very proudly, well, we're happy to mention that, or inform you that we will have 11 full-size, how do you call it, spreads from covering the Dutch Design Week. And I spontaneously said, do you have any idea how much time and money it costs to repair the damage that you do by doing what you're doing? And then they were and I smiled, and I was polite. I mean, I was not. But I said, you only send, in this case, Rob Schone, is a great guy, but he's from culture. So it ends up with, and don't blame me for saying it, but for instance, a champagne cork or the top of it, and the student made a beautiful lamp out of that, and then I have a picture of that's representing design in people like yourselves. So it's such a an unbalanced picture of what designers actually are doing and could be doing. So I recognize what you're saying. So, and again, it's a challenge for the designers to come up with a story that would work for the people who, in our view, should work with us. But okay, we're on the same line.
Actually, Hans already said it. He said you have the effects of design in the financial sector. That's very much put a stress on with companies. Yeah. But you also have it within our own democracy. You can have an effect social, culturally, and you can have an effect on sustainability. And in the end, he's almost on his knee begging to make it possible in this city to really include it in what we have to do as a society together. Mm-hmm. And if I may sum it up like this, then I'll give you the last word because we need to wrap up. But in the end, what do you want us to do?
Well, give it some thoughts after the presentation, and if you feel like I could play a role in this. Actually, the local government is inviting citizens of Eindhoven to be part of this. How do we create a real, valuable design vision? So that's my invitation for you as well. So.
And actually, the important thing is you don't have to be a designer. You just have to be a human being that is willing to also take responsibility for the world in which they live. That's all. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Thank you very much, Hans.
It was a pleasure.
And, would it be possible for people to see what you actually did in Genk? Because the wonderful thing there is also that this was the problem and this was the solution.
Yeah. If you're interested, just give me a call and I can share a lot. There are books and there's far more of the whole process. So if you're interested then you're more than welcome.
Fabulous. Thank you very much again.
We'll provide some snacks if you are invited to have a drink. We also have the opportunity to have dinner at the meetup table for 1950. You can come up to me and ask if you're interested in it, or I'll come and ask you. Have a nice evening and thank you for being here.
Okay, thanks.